Hey guys, how you going? My name is Dom, and in today's video we're going to be creating a hamburger style navigation menu using HTML, CSS and a tiny bit of JavaScript. So this right here is the final product. As we can see, we've got this this side navigation menu. We have support for blurred background here on the overlay. We've got support for icons, and we've also got the ability to set a link as being, like, for example, the active page. So in this case, of course, projects might be the active page right now. So you can do a few things with this. Now, we've also got support for animations and transitions, things like that, and of course right there is the hamburger icon. Okay, so we've also got on top here just, of course, the header, which is fixed and can be scrolled down. So we're going to be creating all of this stuff in today's video. It's very easy to achieve this. It takes less than 100 lines of CSS code. So let's go inside this tab right here and begin from scratch to, of course, create what we just saw. So inside the text editor, I've got here this index.html. Now I've linked up a CSS style sheet right here, which is currently empty, and I've also got a link to Google's material icon library. So I'll leave a link to this in the description below, but essentially you can just go to this page right here and you can copy this link and of course paste it inside your head to include the Google material icons. And just to confirm, that is the material icons guide page. So anyway, let's go back inside here and we're going to, of course, start working on the navigation bar. So we're going to be doing the HTML first for each individual section before moving on to the CSS. So the first section is going to be the floating header on the top of the page. So for this, let's have a new header element right here with a class of header. Okay, inside here we're going to be putting, of course, the button to open the navigation. So we can say button with a class of header underscore button, an ID of btn nav, and lastly a type of button. Okay, inside here now we can include a material icon, so we can say material icons as the class and put through here menu. So if you're not too sure what this is the usage of the Google material icon library. So by specifying menu right here, I'm basically just identifying an icon. So if I refresh this, we have this right here. So I got this menu icon from this page. If I go to the material.io page, you have all these icons to choose from. So I simply just filtered by menu, and I found it just on the bottom here. So of course you can pick whatever icon you like, just make sure it signifies a menu. Anyway, let's go back inside here now and we can move on to styling up the header. So for this, we're going to go inside the CSS and we're going to be targeting the header class. So we can just say header right here. We can set a position of fixed, a top of 0, a left of 0, and these three are going to ensure that the header stays on top of everything else as we scroll down. A width of 100% and a height of 50 px, that's quite self-explanatory. And a background of just a dark grey, and a display of flex. Okay, so the reason for this flex is because we want the option to potentially include more things inside the header. So for example, a logo down here or something like that. You can do this quite nicely using flex. I'm not going to be covering that in today's video though. Anyway, let's just save this and refresh, and we can see we get something like this. Okay, so the problem here is that if I go back in the HTML and if I make a new main tag, for example, and I can just say, hi, my name is Dom inside here. If I save this and refresh, we can see it's actually hidden behind the header due to the fixed positioning. So if I get rid of this, we can see it's right there. So let's push down that text to ensure that it appears right here. So inside the CSS, we're going to be targeting the body tag, and we're going to be saying here dash header height, and we can just say 50 px. So right here we're essentially declaring like a CSS variable, and now we can essentially reference this header height to get 50 px throughout the style sheet. So with that being said, let's have a margin here for var header height. Then we can say 0, 0, 0. This basically means 50 px on the top. Then we have 0 for the the right, the bottom, and then the left. Okay, so we may as well also have a font family of, let's just do sans serif, save this and refresh, and now we get this right here. So it's all working perfectly fine, but we may as well also use this var now to include inside here for the height. That way we can adjust this single value to change the whole height of the actual header. Okay, so we can now move on to styling the actual button itself. Okay, so I want to point out that the display of flex has also increased the height of the button to be the full height of the actual header. Okay, so with that being said, let's go back inside here. We can target the header button class, and for this one we can simply just say right here a width of, let's just do var, then pass through height. Once again, that way it's a perfect square, 50 by 50 px. A flex shrink of 0 to ensure that it won't ever be squashed down due to extra elements to the right of it. We can say background none, an outline of none, and a border of none. Those are just to remove the default styling of the button. A color of white and a cursor of pointer. Those two are quite self-explanatory. So now let's save this and refresh, and we have this right here. Okay, so we can now move on to styling up the actual navigation itself. So in order to achieve this, we're going to be creating essentially a main wrapper. A main wrapper around the navigation. Okay, so we're going to have the main nav element. Then we have here essentially two elements: this navigation links side pane, the one that comes out and comes back in, and the actual overlay. Okay, so with that being said, let's go back inside the index.html, and we can simply make a new nav here with a class of nav and place those two elements. So we can say nav __ links, and this one is going to contain all of our navigation links. Okay, so the links themselves are going to look like this. We can say a with a class of nav __ link with a href of nothing currently, and we can simply go inside here, include a material-icons for, let's just say dashboard for example. Then we can just say dashboard right here as the text. I can save this and refresh, and we have something like this. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste all of my existing links into here just to speed up the time, giving us this right here. Okay, perfect. Right, so now let's work on the actual overlay. So when it comes to the overlay, this thing right here, it's going to simply be an extra element right here. So I can say nav __ overlay, and that can be empty. We're going to be styling that with CSS anyway. So with that being said, let's go inside the CSS file, and we can target the nav __ links class right here. So for the links container itself, we can say position fixed. Okay, we can say top 0 and a left of 0. That way, once again, it's going to be floating on top of everything else as we scroll down. A z index of 2. This is to ensure that it actually appears above the overlay, which is going to have a z index of 1. We can say height 100 v height of the total height of the page, and a width here of 250 px. Okay, a background of white. Let's save this and refresh, and we get something like this. As we can see, it is now overlaying the actual header and the whole page itself. Okay, so we can move on now to styling up the actual links themselves. So let's go back inside here, and for the nav link, this one is of course singular. For the nav link, we're going to have a display of flex and align items of center. So these two are going to ensure that the actual icons and the text are going to be in the same middle bit. Okay, a color of just a medium gray, font weights of bold, a font size of 14 px, text decoration of none, and a padding of 12 px and 15 px. So 12 px top and bottom, and 15 px left and right. So those are all quite self-explanatory. Let's just save this and refresh, and now we get something like this. Okay, so next step is going to be putting some space between the icons and the text. So let's go back inside here and we can say nav link once again, this time targeting the direct descendant of I for the icon. We can say margin right 15px, the same value as what we used right up here. And we might as well also style up a new class for --active. Okay, so this one here is going to be for your active links. So I can say color, make this 009578, and a background of light gray. So now saving this and refreshing, we can see right there the projects tab, or the projects link is of course highlighted, because in my example, when I copied it across, I actually left on the nav link active class on that particular anchor element. So of course, that is why the active is appearing. Okay, now in terms of when hovering over the actual links, we need to of course change the background color. So let's say nav link, when they get hovered over, we can just use the same background color from up here. And honestly, we could probably just have a second selector here to say that, and then remove this from there to make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so that is all for the links themselves. So saving this and refreshing, we can hover over them and we can see it's working perfectly fine. So we're done with the majority of the CSS. Of course, we have the overlay to do, but let's just pause here and have a look at the logic for how the navigation is going to open and close. So if I go back to my example right here, if you look inside the inspector, we can see on my nav, I've currently got a class for nav-open. So if I close the navigation bar, we can see that goes away. So opening it is going to add this class, closing it is going to remove that class. So that is how we're going to, of course, toggle the visibility of the navigation menu. And the JavaScript is a few lines long, and it's going to simply trigger this class on or off as we click on different elements. Okay, so with that being said, let's work on styles for the navigation menu to appear and then go away. So by default, this menu needs to be hidden. So we need to actually push this navigation off the side of the page. So let's do that right now. So by default, the navigation links, we can say transform, set this to be translate x -250, and that is going to push it off the page by 250px. This needs to be the same value as this one right here. You could even make a variable for it. Okay, now with that being said, let's also do nav-open, then select a child for nav__links. So now, when the navigation is open, we need to simply reverse this effect. So we can say translate x 0 right there. And while we're here, we can also have a box shadow. We can say box shadow 0, 0, 0, actually 0015px, RGBA 000 0.2 for example. So now, saving this and refreshing, we get of course nothing. Okay, if I add this class for nav-open, it now appears right there. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Of course, getting rid of it is going to reverse the effect, and we get that right there. Okay, so let's move on to doing a few more things with that. Actually, you know what? Let's move on to the actual overlay. Okay, so for the overlay, it's going to be really simple. So let's go back inside here, and we're going to be targeting the nav__overlay class. Okay, so for this one, we can simply just say, similar to the others, we can say position for fixed, and a top of 0, a left of 0. Okay, we can also say a width of 100 VW and a height of 100 VH to take up the full visible, web page. Okay, we can say background, we can make this RGBA 000 0.5, so a 50% opaque black. We can say backdrop filter and set this to be blur for 2px. That'll give us the blur effect. And that is all for now. Let's save this and refresh, and we get this right here. Okay, so it's working fine, but of course, similar to the nav, it needs to be hidden by default. So let's go back inside here, set the visibility to be hidden and the opacity to be 0. So let me show you why this visibility of hidden is required. So I'll make this not there with just an opacity of 0. If I refresh, we can see of course it is gone, but I can't actually select anything on the page or interact with the page because of course the actual overlay is invisible on top of the page, right? So to get around this, we need to actually set visibility of hidden, and it's going to resolve that problem, as we can see right here. It's working fine now. So that is the default state of the overlay. So once again, if the navigation is open, we need to display that overlay. So back inside here, we can simply just say, like before, nav dash dash open, target the nav overlay, and we can simply just say essentially just the opposite of these two. Okay, so put that right there, say visible, then just say 1, save this and refresh, and we have this right here. If I do nav, make this nav open, the overlay appears right there. So everything is fine on the CSS side. We're going to come back to the actual transitions and the animations, and instead now focus on the JavaScript. So for the JavaScript, it's going to be very easy. Inside the index HTML, we're just going to listen for when the DOM has loaded. So we're going to say document.add event listener. We can say DOM content loaded, and once everything has loaded, okay, we can now safely interact with the elements on the page. So we're going to be saying const nav equal to document.query selector. We're going to be targeting or selecting the actual nav class right there, of course our main nav element right there, and we're going to say right here document.query selector, we're going to be selecting the btn nav button. Okay, so of course this one right here, we're going to simply say when this button gets clicked on, we're going to run this function. So this function is going to simply show the navigation. It's going to be adding that class to the nav. So we're going to say nav.classList.add, going to be adding the nav-open class to the element. Okay, let's do a very similar thing now for the actual overlay. So this time selecting the nav overlay. When the overlay gets clicked on, we need to remove the nav-open class. Just like that. Okay, so you could potentially use toggle here, not too sure, but this is probably, you know, a clean and preferred option. So let's save this and refresh, and now we should be able to click on the button and it appears, click on the overlay and it goes away. So that's all done. Let's now work on the actual transitions. Okay, so back inside here, we need to add a transition for the Nav Links. So this transform, we can simply say transition transform at 0.3 seconds. Okay. When it comes to the navigation links, we can have a transition on the background when you actually hover over the links themselves. Okay. And the last one is going to be for the overlay when the opacity changes. So let's make this opacity 0.3 seconds also. We might actually go back up here and make this one 0.2 for the actual link. So let's save this and refresh, and we have almost the finished product. So we can do this and we can see the animations and transitions are working perfectly fine. So there is a problem with this. Now it's kind of hard to replicate, but it happens sometimes. Basically, what happens is when you refresh the page, sometimes the navigation menu actually appears on the left side here and then quickly goes away. So I'll try and do it here. There you go. So when this happens, okay, obviously it's not the best thing, not the worst thing, but you can actually prevent it. So to prevent this from happening, we can actually use a class on the body. So we can say right here, class on the body. We can say preload. And I found this solution online, csstricks.com, but basically you have this class of preload, and inside the top here we can say preload, select every single element, and we can simply say transition, set this to be none, then important. So now on page load, if I refresh, we can see the transitions have gone away. Okay, so to put them back, we need to simply remove this class on page load. So let's go back inside here now. We can say window.addEventListener. Okay, we can say load. Okay, so when everything is finished loading, we can simply just say document.body, then just say class list.remove and get rid of that preload class. So now if I save this and refresh, right here we can see the animations are back and it's all working perfectly fine, and we don't have this problem right here where it comes in then goes back. So that is how to create a hamburger menu using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.